Hey there, I'm Jason Peacock. Welcome to the first episode of the Peacock Podcast. It's the first episode, so let me take a few minutes and introduce myself. My name is Jason Peacock, and you might recognize me as a Dice Tower contributor. I've been doing reviews and contributing to the Best of the Month for about a year and a half now, I think, something like that. I try and do a review once every 2 weeks, but it typically ends up being one a month kind of thing. And along with that, I was doing a YouTube vlog where I was showing off what I was playing and I was talking about everything. Kind of what I'm doing now, but in video form. And with my 2 kids and my career and my life and trying to paint minis and play games, review games, I just can't balance everything. So I think stripping that vlog down to this audio podcast, well, it's going to be on YouTube, and I'm going to try and splash it with pictures of the games I'm talking about as well. But I feel like doing it audio gives me the freedom to do this sort of thing more regularly, and it's more of a loose format and easier to work with. So if you're listening, thanks very much. I appreciate it. Please leave any questions or comments down below. Let me know what you think. So I think we'll stick to the traditional method of these board gaming podcasts, and I'll start things off with some games I've been playing. Now, I've had a list going since January, and I kept putting off my video vlog, so I could talk for hours about everything I've been playing since the last time I had a vlog, but I'm going to narrow this down to the 4 games that have stuck out that I've been playing lately. So let me start off with a classic Euro-style game called Orléans. Now, this is like a European version of a deck building game. Instead of a deck of cards, you've got a bag of worker chits. Now, you're going to accumulate different types of workers, and on your own personal board, your worker placement actions are going to be a combination of different workers. So, say I wanted to do a village action, which is like to recruit one of the villagers. I would need like a farmer, a boatman, and a trader. If I have those 3 guys, I can do that action. And all these tracks where you're gaining new workers, you're also like leveling up in some way, something that makes you a little bit better. Every time you gain a knight, for example, you're going to be able to grab an extra worker out of the bag at the start of your turn. If you grab the professor from the university, you're going to go up the development track, and that's essentially you're going to have numbers periodically along the whole bottom of the board. These numbers on stars, every time you cross one, you're multiplying victory points for civilians that you collect and these buildings that you can put down. So it's like a multiplier. I think of it like the popularity in sight. The more popular you are, the more of a multiplier on your endgame victory points. There's a lot going on, a lot of different strategies to think about, and it's also such an elegant, simple rule set. It's very easy to explain and teach, and I've had the game a week. My wife and I have played it 3 times, and I played it with a friend that came over who put it in the must-buy pile. So Orléans, it's going to be hitting the table a lot. I've got the Traders and Intrigue expansion on the way for this game. Thanks to some recommendations on the Dice Tower group, I was told it was a must-have expansion, so I've got that on the way. And I've just been really loving my Euro games lately, so Orléans, fantastically well done. This Tasty Mitchell Games edition, and I've only played 2-player. I'm dying to break it out at 3 and 4 player. Now, continuing on my Euro game playing track here, another one you guys might have heard of called Great Western Trail. This is a medium weight Euro game. It's a worker placement game of sorts, but rather than just putting your worker down, the worker placement is moving along a map. You're going from the starting city through a bunch of, you can take different paths, different forking roads, and eventually you're going to end up in Kansas, and you're going to cash in your hand of beef, which is these different colored cards with numbers on them. Every different card in your hand, every unique one, you add together, and the better beef hands you get, the more money you get. Further up, you get to move your train. So it's got a little bit of a deck building when you do the cattle action, right? You're trying to buy good meat and stuff, different breeds of cow. Again, tons of strategy. Everything feels balanced. You can put your buildings down on the board, which are unique actions to you. You can put them down anywhere. Sometimes if you might have to cross hazardous terrain to get to your building, you're going to get these extra bonuses. But I feel like I can play this game another, 20 times. I'll still be piecing together optimal strategies. I'm just loving it anyway. I played it with my wife one game, and I've played it with another couple, so a 3-player game. Actually, when I played with them 3 turns in, I'm like, I got to have this game in my collection. So it took my wife and I like 3 or 4 days to play it. She works at the pub, so she gets home late. We'll sit down, we'll play a few turns, leave everything set up, go watch a show before bed, and we'll pick it up the next night. But she really enjoyed it, and now that the learning game is over, I'm very much looking forward to the next game with my wife, where she's got a plan in action. She does really good at these Euro games. So Great Western Trail, it's, if it's not in my top 10, it's definitely in my top 20. Continuing on with Euro games, played this game called Through the Desert. This is a reprint of an older game, Reiner Knizia Classic. It is a abstract strategy game, but the pieces of the game are beautiful. You got 5 different colors of pastel colors of these camels, and you've got little plastic riders in your color. You're going to start off with 5 of your riders on a combination of colors. That's kind of up to you when you're setting up which colors you want to put a rider on. No player particularly owns a color of camel, right? And once you're all set up, there's going to be a whole bunch of these point tokens on little watering holes all over the board. If you can get a camel to go over top of it, or a caravan to go over top of it, you simply collect those points. There's also these bigger oases with these beautiful little green plastic trees that make the board pop out a bit. And if you can connect a caravan to it, you take these 5-point tokens. So on your turn, you're taking any 2 camels, 2 of the same color, 2 of different colors, and you're adding them to an existing line of camels you already have on the board. You're not allowed to connect to a camel line of the same color as an opponent. So if I've got a white line, but the next white camel I put down is going to connect with an opponent's white line, I'm not allowed to put that there. You can purposely start diverting your lines to where you're going to cut someone off. But you're just trying to move camels around. You're trying to cut off parts of the board. If you can have the one end of your caravan connected to an edge of the board and then like a big arch over to another part of the board, you're going to get points for everything inside. And at the end of the game, you're going to score 1 point for every blank space that's in there. You just keep going back and forth, grabbing any 2 camels, adding them to your lines however you want, restricting the placement rules. And once one color completely runs out, that's the end of the game. You add up all your score, and whoever's got the most points wins. It's an abstract strategy game, which I do love my abstract strategies. I was a big-time chess player from when I was very young, and it's probably a big part of why I fell so in love with hobby board games. So I've always got a soft spot in my heart for abstract strategy, and this comes across as a game that if you're really good at, if you've played it a lot, you're just going to destroy new players, and that's the way abstract strategy games have to be. You start adding too much randomness, and an abstract strategy loses its punch, in my opinion. But Through the Desert, I recommend it. It plays it can play 20 minutes to 45 minutes. It's a very quick game. Again, I've only played 2 players with this. Looking forward to the chaos that a 3 or 4 player game would bring. And the decisions you make in that is immense. Like, my brain burns trying to think of what my opponent's going to do on his turn, how I might be able to block him off from scoring a bunch of points. And I'm also looking at the best things I can do to score points. The cogs in my brain are constantly turning when I'm playing this. All right, time to get off the Euro games. Let's talk about a couple of mini-zone map games that both of these I'm quite fond of. First one being Mythic Battles Pantheon. Now, I did do a review of this. It's on the Dice Tower. I'm through the roof in love with this game. And it's actually a remake of a yellow game that's pretty much got the same rule set, except instead of using chits or, abstract pieces for the figures, we've got a full-on array of miniatures. With the all-in of this game, there's well over 100 different units, and there's essentially 2 games to this. The first part of the game is the drafting, and this is 100% strategy. You've got these 100 different units, 100 plus units. There's a combination of monsters, heroes, lowly troops, and your deities, either a titan or a god. Now, as a side note, just the base game itself gives you tons of replayability and a whole bunch of units. That box is packed. I love having all the extra stuff. I feel like this is a game I'm going to be playing for the rest of my life. There's a 1.5 Kickstarter coming June 5th. Either it just launched or it's going to be launching in the next day or two, depending on when I get this out there. But the first game is you're drafting your army. So you've got all these different options presented to you. It's not necessarily every unit that's in the game. I like to use these randomizer cards. So all the units you have, you just shuffle up the cards and you deal out a certain amount of points, and then you take turns drafting them into your army. A two-player skirmish game, say you have 18 recruitment points. You're going to pick from, maybe you flip up 5 different deities, gods or titans, and you're going to pick one, and then you spend the rest of your points on troops. Now, out of those 100-plus units in the game, every single one of them has a different special power. Not so much the troops, they might, but like the heroes, the monsters, the gods, and the titans all have these awesome powers. And picking your dudes to make those powers work together for strategies is huge, right? So you got 100% strategy there. And then you set up on one of the maps, and you're going to put these Omphalos stones on the board. There's 2 ways to win. You either destroy the enemy deity, or your god absorbs 4 of these stones that are on the board. It's got a really cool combat system and a card system. Like, it's very much a card game, because depending on the unit you have, you're going to get a certain amount of cards in your draw pile. And on your turn, you're going to play a card that lets you activate that unit. If they're not on the board, then you just put them on the board, and that's it. And then you're moving him to position. Maybe your guy has climbed, so you climb up on this big boulder. Now you've got an extra range, so you get an archer up there, and you're picking off enemy units. And then just how you play your cards, and use your Art of War, which are, some of your units will give you Art of War cards. You always start with 3 regardless of what your army gives you. But it lets you do things like go through your deck and grab any card you want, or some special powers require the expenditure of Art of War cards. But how you use them could be strategic. So it's got this awesome dice system that I'm not going to try and explain, but it's got like exploding 5s. And as your monsters and everyone takes damage, you bring this slider down a dashboard, and their stats get weaker and weaker. So maybe they've got a defense of 9 when they're healthy, and after they've taken 4 or 5 damage, they've got a defense of 5 or 6, so they're easier to beat up. They get slower. I love how that's reflected in this game. But I cannot say enough good things about this. I'm going to build a table that's always got Mythic Battles set up in it, and I'll have like another tabletop lid I can put over top when it's not being played. I kind of want like an 8-foot long one, and half of it will be a permanent Conan game setup, and half of it will be a Mythic Battle setup. But I got to get this treehouse I'm working on finished first, and then I'm getting into some new gaming tables to build. But Mythic Battles Pantheon, the skirmish mode, I love it. It's my favorite 2-player skirmish game, one of my favorite 2-player games ever. And in addition to that, they've also got a ton of scenarios where they've got preset armies and win conditions set up. There's a cooperative 1 or 2, but that really spices things up. So if you never got a chance to get it, this is not going to be a retail game. It's going to Kickstarter. There's going to be a couple of new units. I believe they're teasing their next Mythic Battles Ragnarok a figure from that. And then they're updating some of the rules that have been tweaked since it got out into the masses, updating some of the dashboards and stats and tweaking powers here and there, I guess. They're going to give backers of the first one a free upgrade kit, and they're releasing tournament rules, so that's exciting. Mythic Battles Pantheon by Monolith. This company's batting 100 for me. Conan, I back that just because I read the rulebook and I love the cinematic way the players spend gems to do different actions. And there's no set order. You can spend a bit, another player can spend a bit, do something. Yeah, and then this Mythic Battle Lines is going into Mythic Battles Ragnarok, and they're going to do these different these different pantheons of gods every couple of years, I guess. So bring it on, as long as everything's kind of fresh and interesting. I'm all aboard. And these guys are also going to do a Claustrophobia reboot Kickstarter. So, I mean, if they do to Claustrophobia what they did with Mythic Battles to the original one, this is going to be some crazy Kickstarter. Anyways, that one launches in like October or something, so keep an eye out for that. Okay, so enough about Mythic Battles and Monolith. Now we're going to Lords of Hellas. This is my Kemet killer. Kemet's been a favorite game of mine, but I just like the way this one plays better. There's more going on. There's more ways to win. The combat's more interesting, but I'm still holding on to Kemet because it still plays 5 players. We're currently Lords of Hellas caps at 4 until the expansions hit retail or backers' hands in a few months. Man, what a beautiful looking game. You've got like a cyberpunk mixed with mythic Greece look to it. Looks like, or the Cyclops has got like a laser eye, and yeah, they've got futuristic looking robotic weapons and stuff. There's these giant monuments. They're like 5-6 inches tall. They tower over the board, and these get built up over the course of the game, and you're actually pressing these pieces together. But it's a dudes on the map area control game. You can win one of 4 ways. Your hero, who's running around the world, kills 3 monsters, would get you the win. Control 2 different lands. Lands are a bunch of territories connected that are the same color, so there's anywhere from 3 to 5 territories in a land. If you've got a control token and 2 full lands, you win right there. These temples get built over the course of the game, and if you control 5 lands with temples in them, that's a win. And finally, what I was talking about with these monuments getting built. After one gets fully built, then there's a 3-round marker till the game ends. Whoever's controlling that monument's territory at the end of 3 rounds wins the victory that way. Whoever can pull off one of those victories first is the winner. Now, if you're going for a monster victory, you've got to have a plan B as well. You've got to kind of work on some other ones if that monster victory doesn't work out for you. And you really have to be aware of what other players are doing. So if you're not watching, they can eke out a win. There's definitely that tenseness, but if you're not watching, the game could be a blowout, I suppose. Like you're working towards a strategy, and all of a sudden someone wins. You got to work towards your own goals. You got to have a plan B, and you got to be thwarting other players' strategies. But what a brilliant meld this game is. The way the mechanics come together. Your hero can run around questing. You've got your hoplites, with this awesome battle system, with all the monsters. Oh man, this was everything I was hoping it would be. It's already in retail in some places in Europe. It's going to hit the North American shores soon, I think. And then there's a few expansions coming out for it as well. This is another Kickstarter company that's been doing great, Awaken Realms. They've got this Lords of Hellas game. They've got a game called Nemesis, which made an insane amount of money on Kickstarter, coming out next year or somewhere towards the end of this year, which I backed. This War of Mine, which I've never played, but I've heard good things about it. They've got one that's been in development forever. I'm glad I didn't back it. I backed Mythic Battles instead. I think it's called The Edge Downfall or something, and yeah, this game must be like 2 years late now. I'm not sure where it's at in development. It still looked amazing, and it was designed by Michael Oritz, who did Neuroshima Hex, and helped with Cry Havoc. So he's a seasoned designer. If any of you guys out there know what's going on with that one, please let me know in the comments. By the way, since I'm talking about Awaken Realms, I sent this card game for free called Siege Storm. I read the first line in the rulebook, and it said it would be a collectible card game, and right away I'm like, oh, nope, forget about it. I played it anyway. They did send the game free to Kickstarter backers, and I'm like, but it's unique. Like, I played it, I'm like, I kind of like that. There's 2 different factions. All the cards are like one type. Not that they're all the same, but they're all monsters. You can use them for the monster on the card, or you can use them for the action. If you can storm your opponent's front line, you can attack and do that same action for free. You can use both abilities on the card. But it kind of surprised me, and then I was reading into it on Board Game Geek, and it turns out that the outcry over the collectability was heard, and they're not going to release it that way. They're going to release it in factions, I think, or like a CCG method where they'll just release all the cards. So because they're doing that, I'm on board. I really liked it. I played once. I'll be talking about the game more as I play it a bit more and get familiar, but the rules barrier is low. Once you get going on this, there's really interesting decisions. Your deck is your health, so once you run out of your 30 cards, you're dead. When you're casting creatures, you got to discard health pretty much. Discard cards from your hand equal to the cost of a card. If you get a dude up to the front line, instead of attacking, you can choose to turn it into permanent money, basically, called turning it into support. It goes face down, and you can tap that basically to apply 1 money to something. So it's kind of, you build up your engine and start getting the more expensive cards later. Sure, you can throw big cards out early on, but you're throwing away tons, and if that gets dealt with, you spent all that for nothing, right? Because there's cards that'll straight up just maybe kill a creature. But keep an eye out for Siege Storm, because I know I am. I was pleasantly surprised. Okay, so I got a discussion topic here, and I find this an interesting one because I'm finally getting to the point where I'm running out of shelf space. I've been collecting for 4 or 5 years now, and I filled up a pretty big room, and I've even got my office as a few stacks on the floor of games I want to sell. But I find myself getting way more picky now, way less excited about a Kickstarter game because, I want to really get to know the games that I already have. I've got games that I might have played once or twice, so I'm like, I want to play that like half a dozen times and really figure out what makes it tick before, letting it collect dust forever. So I find myself being way more picky, and if a game isn't like some kind of groundbreaking new thing or something that blows a similar game that I have out of the water, then I'm not interested in it. Let's take a deck building game, right? I really don't even look at deck builders because I've got a ton of them. I like them, but they don't jump out as anything that's like, would I play this deck builder instead of, say, Clank? I just did a review of a review copy of this game, Heart of Crown. It's a cool deck builder. It's very Dominion-like. But if I'm going to play a deck builder, I'd probably play Trains before this one, and I'd probably just go right for Clank or something like that, or Xenoshift, or Tyrants of the Underdark. So that's kind of what I'm getting at. So a deck builder's got to be like some crazy awesome new thing to kick something else off of my shelf, because it's pretty much, new game comes in, one's got to go out. So where are you guys at with that? Are you're just going to build more shelves, or do you just flip games when you stop playing them anymore? What if you can't sell your games? Do you give them away? Give them away to charity? Anyways, it's definitely an interesting reflection on where I'm at in the hobby, and it's a sign that my tastes have greatly changed as well. I see a flashy Kickstarter ad with crazy minis, and it doesn't really excite me. I've got thousands of minis. I love painting them, but the game's gotta look amazing. The rulebook's really gotta make me think that this is gonna be something special. Yeah, that's where I'm at with that discussion topic. I'd like to hear your guys' thoughts on that. I want to keep this thing down. I had a couple other categories: games I'm learning, and I had a tale of horror, but I think I'll save that for the next one. I think I want to get this one wrapped, get it out there in the world, see how it goes. If you like this, give it a thumb up, share it. That would be awesome. Get some other board gamers listening to it. Making content is just a great hobby for me. So until next time, game on, folks. Thanks for listening.